Hello, and welcome back to Israel Adventure 2019. I'm Joan Wettlaufer.
And I'm Dave Wettlaufer, and today we bring you episode 2. If you haven't seen our first episode, which covered the first 2 days of our tour, we encourage you to check it out now. In this episode, we cover day 3 with 7 stops around the Sea of Galilee.
Our day started with the drive from Nazareth to the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee. On the way, our guide, Eli Shukran, explained a little about the geography of the area.
African, one Arabian, and they are moving all the time. And because that we have the lowest part of in the Jordan Valley is the Dead Sea. Everything is moving. Even now, it's moving down and north and south 1 centimeter every year. So every year it's moving. You can see the upper gully in front of us, and you can see the lower gully. You can see the distance. You can see the difference between that two kind of hills. More than 1,000 meters above the sea level. 500, 400 meters above the sea level. This is the distance between the hills. This is the highway look, what it look like in the Wettlaufer Valley. And this was because the rain. And when the rain is raining, and this is what's happening. You see, all it's one lake. It look like in one lake. It's from the right side of the bus, further, we can see the Golan Heights. This is the Golan Heights.
Here's some facts about the Sea of Galilee. It's the second lowest freshwater lake on Earth, with an elevation of about 215 meters below sea level. It's fed mainly by the Upper Jordan River, and its outflow is the Lower Jordan River.
Throughout history, it has been known as the Sea of Minya, the Sea of Gennesar, Lake Gennesaret, Sea of Kinneret, Lake Tiberias, and of course, the Sea of Galilee.
You may think that because it's got the word sea in its name, it's fairly large, but that's not so. Its area is about 167 square kilometers. For our local viewers, compare that to Lake Ontario, the smallest of the Great Lakes, at almost 19,000 square kilometers. Its deepest point is about 43 meters when it's full.
The Bible talks about the storms that arose on the sea, and because it is pretty much surrounded by high hills, the weather really can change quickly and dramatically.
Our first stop was at Mensa Christi, also known as the Church of the Primacy of St. Peter. Tradition says that the rock in this church is the place where Jesus, after his resurrection, laid out a breakfast of bread and fish for the disciples, and where he told Peter 3 times to feed my sheep.
However, tradition may not be entirely accurate, as there is another table at the nearby Church of the Multiplication, and yet another table of Christ at the Mensa Christi Church in Nazareth.
Our tour leader, Pastor Paul, read to us from the book of John, chapter 21.
Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way: Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. This is the discouragement part. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them, and they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some. I always stop on this. I mean, have you ever been fishing, and you fish on one side of the boat and you figure it's different on the other side? Like, really? When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. And as soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it's the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he'd taken it off, and he jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it, and some bread. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. Jesus took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish.
Our next stop was at the town of Capernaum, the town of Jesus. It was the center of his ministry after he left Nazareth, and it's where he taught in the synagogue and performed many healings. These include Simon Peter's mother-in-law, as told in Luke chapter 4, and the paralytic who was lowered by friends through the roof to reach Jesus, as told in Luke chapter 5.
Leaving Nazareth, he went and lived in Capernaum, which was by the lake, in the sea, in the area of Zebulun and Naphtali. Understand those prophecies to fulfill what was said through the prophet Isaiah. Land of Zebulun and land of Naphtali, the way of the sea, beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people living in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. From that time on, Jesus began to preach, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near."
Another resident of Capernaum was Matthew, the tax collector.
Second, we're talking about the milestone, and we talk about the Via Maris. And why it's important, that finding, the milestone? This is the question. Why it's important? It's important because who was Matthew?
Tax collector.
Yeah, tax collector. And this is a very interesting question, because what is doing in here in Capernaum? He cannot take the taxes from the fishermen. No way. From who he taking the taxes? We talk about Via Maris, you remember, the road. All right. The border between the kingdom is sitting there. The milestone, you remember? The small finding, milestone, tell us that this is the road. What the milestone tell us? That this is the real road, the Roman road that crossing the land. So what you doing? You're taking taxes from who? Export, import. Inside of the kingdom, outside of the kingdom. This is how you make the money. This is how you can collecting taxes, not from the fishermen. What you can collect from 2 fish a day. And after 1 hour, what do you do with the fish? You cannot eat it even. In this weather here, in this land? No way. And he was watching and praying this way to Jerusalem. This is the way. This is the way also in the first century. The focus was the center and the people sitting around. Everyone seeing each other together. This building built as a basilica. Basilica, you can see the colonnade of the pillar. One enters from here, one enters in the middle, one enters there. Two columns of pillar, and this is called the basilica. This is the style of a building, and you can see it also in the churches and see also in the synagogue. This came from the Roman tradition, how they build public building. But what you're doing in the synagogue, you pray to Jerusalem. What you're doing in the churches, it's different worshiping.
Our third stop of the morning was at Chorazim, an ancient village 2.5 miles from Capernaum on a hill overlooking the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee.
Its claim to fame, if we can call it that, is found in the book of Matthew chapter 11. And we will hear one of our tour members read that passage while sitting on the seat of Moses. Today this site is one of many national parks of Israel.
One of the highlights of our Chorazim visit was that Pastor Paul was able to purchase a Magnum white chocolate ice cream bar.
He claims you can't get them in Canada.
This is why I came to Israel.
Magnum.
White magnums. They don't do white magnums in Ontario in the shoppers or there. They sell all the other magnums with Magnum is the chocolate bar.
The water here. And this is called a ritual bath, the mikveh, where you purify yourself. Purification area. This it means that when you want to be pure, you're going inside. In English you say clean. But if you want to be pure, you're going inside to the ritual bath, you purify yourself, you're going naked, you're going in, out, and then this is a day life in the Jewish life. It means every day you can do whatever, a woman, a man, and in Qumran, for example, they seen doing whatever, you must to get the water here from the rain. You cannot go to the spring, bring the water, put it here in snow. It must to come as a living water.
Spring.
And this is how you purify yourself. It's between you and God. Okay? It's not baptized, it's purification. And this is the ritual, but you're walking inside to the water and purify yourself between you and God, and this is how you're doing that. And if you found that in the excavation, you immediately understand that you are in the Jewish town. So what we have in the Jewish town, a ritual bath, we have a synagogue, animal bones, what we found, kosher animal bones, clean animal bones, goats, sheep, not pig and all the other. Okay, you must understand, we talk about, what we're talking about in the first century. We talk about Gentile, pagan, and Jewish. And this is very, very interesting finding that they found here in Korozin, wine press. And you can see the difference between the wine press and the olive press. Wine press, you put the grapes smudging it by foot. Olive press, you take the olive, you put it and you smudge it with a stone. And then you took the smudging olive, you put it in a sack, and then they press it with this other stone. So it's different than what you're doing wine and olive. Wine can stay years by years. Olive, you must eat it immediately. If not, it's not so good. Because you've been in Italy, no? Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're looking here, we can see the synagogue and the entrance into the synagogue. But look, like we saw in Capernaum, where you came from the south, you're going inside to the synagogue and you pray to where? To Jerusalem this way. Okay, so what we've seen here the entrance to the synagogue, and the entrance to the synagogue is a basilica. You go into the high place in the city, going inside to the synagogue, and what is the importance in that synagogue? The importance in that synagogue is what they found inside. The detail that they found, because that type of synagogue we saw in Capernaum, we saw in Katsarin, we saw in Ba'am, different kind of places, all over around. This all go to the Byzantine period, about 5th, 6th century AD. But what is important in this synagogue? It's the finding that they found inside, and we're going to see it. Okay, let's go this way, please. They found here that kind of finding. This is a replica. The original, it's in the Israel Museum. This is called the seat of Moses. And why that it's important? Because the Bible talks about the seat of Moses. You must understand the connection, the small details, okay? What it means. Generally, the seat of Moses is made by wood, so you are not finding in the excavation. Here we found that in the excavation because they're made by stone. Okay? And this is the real seat of Moses that's found here in the synagogue. It means that when the Bible talks about the seat of Moses, it's talking about this is something that it was in the reality, in the synagogue, in that time. Okay, they're praying to Jerusalem this way, to the south. We come inside and pray to Jerusalem. Here, above this stone, they put the scrolls of the Torah, the book of the Torah, and the people watching, and you're reading the Torah and teaching the Torah. And in that time, you're worshiping here. You pray to Jerusalem. You pray to the house of the Lord in Jerusalem.
Then Jesus began to denounce the cities in which most of his miracles had been performed, because they did not repent. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! If the miracles that were performed in you had been performed in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, it'll be more bearable for Tyre and Sidon on the day of judgment than for you. And you, Capernaum, will you be lifted up to the skies? No, you will go down to the depths. If the miracles that were performed in you had been performed in Sodom, it would have remained to this day. But I tell you that it'll be more bearable for Sodom on that day of judgment than for you.
For our last morning stop, we went nearly 200 meters above the Sea of Galilee to the Mount of Beatitudes. but we were still about 25 meters below sea level, which makes this mount one of the lowest summits in the world.
For more than 1,600 years, this has been a traditional location where Jesus delivered his Sermon on the Mount, which includes the Beatitudes.
Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and he sat down. His disciples came to him and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you."
Well, that was a busy morning of touring and listening. So we stopped at the Tangerine Galilee restaurant for an official St. Peter's fish lunch.
Then we moved on to see the ancient Galilee boat and some unique artistic work on the way. The boat was discovered in 1986 on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee when it appeared during a drought. It has been dated to between 50 BC and 50 AD and is the type of boat that Jesus and his disciples would have used.
That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him, and they said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." And then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified, and they asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him."
So this is the Sea of Galilee. It's a fresh water, and this was the reservoir water of the Israeli state from the 48 till a few years ago when we start to use the water from the Mediterranean, the civilization of the water from the Mediterranean Sea, and 70% came from the Mediterranean Sea today. A lot of water from here going to Jordan. That's my kingdom of Jordan. We support them with fresh water that came from the Sea of Galilee. But all the water that you're drinking today, that you're going to drink today in the hotel, whatever, all that water came from the Sea of Galilee.
Of course, after you've seen an ancient Galilee boat, you'll want to take a cruise in a more modern version. It was a calm day, and the boat operators had our flag ready to hoist up the mast and a suitable song to play for a bunch of Canadian Christians.
Put your hand in the hand of the man who steals the water. Put your hand in the hand of the man who calmed the sea. Take a look at yourself and you can look at others differently by putting your hand in the hand of the man from the Galilee.
Well, that's enough of that. Is it worth mentioning that that song was also recorded by Paul Anka, Loretta Lynn, and Elvis Presley?
No. Here's Ellie explaining how the weather can turn nasty very quickly.
Just beautiful. You feel it. It's something special. But don't. Today it's very. The sea it's very smooth, very nice. But some days it's not so nice to the people. And the storm here, not just in the Bible, also today. There's this time that the Sea of Galilee there's a storm and it's a wave. We cannot. You see all that boat hiding some places there. We're not seeing them here in this area. So this is very, very special to understand, and I say it's a small detail to understand where we are, what's happening, and the topography, and the weather, and the land, and the wind, and everything. It's the same. It's nothing changed between 2,000 years ago and today. And look, just beautiful. Think about Jesus here in the same season now. He's riding a boat. This is what he's feeling, seeing the water, the same water, the sky is the same sky, and the wind is the same wind, and the green area, and the flowers, and the tree, and everything is the same. Just amazing. Beautiful time to come to Israel. Not all the time it's beautiful to come to Israel.
So far today, we've visited 6 sites, but there's time for one more before we call it a day, and that is the Church of the Multiplication of the Loaves and Fishes.
The sign says Church of Heptapagon. That's the name of the ancient village that was near this site.
But for us, the most important event that happened here was the miracle of Jesus multiplying the loaves and fish to feed a whole bunch of people.
5,000.
No church, this is a church that didn't build around in the city. It's outside of the city. They built it here. Why? Because they say this is the place where was the miracle. But what it's important to see when they build that churches, we're close to Capernaum. We're not so far away. But also what we have here, you remember we talk about? What is this?
Roman road.
The road. Going where? All the way to Damascus. So when everyone that's going through this road to Capernaum, is coming and is walking close to the church. And what you're doing, you're going to the church. Because this is the way. So what we have in the church, we're talking about the Roman time. So if you're looking, we can see the plan of the church. Beautiful mosaics flow here. But what we have in the courtyard of the church, what we have here a well, water, fresh water. When you're walking all the way and all the day, look, we're in April. Think about July. Think about August. You're walking here, it's very hot. What you need? Rest. Where are you going? To the church, sitting, drinking your water. Let's go. This way, please.
Jesus withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and they said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said, and he directed the people to sit down in the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks, and he broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children.
So that was the end of day number 3, Sunday, April 7th, 2019. 7 stops plus lunch kept us on the move. So we boarded the bus and headed to Tiberias for a couple nights stay at the Guy Beach Hotel.
Do you know that Tiberias is Ellie's hometown? Wonder if he stayed with his mother while our tour was there.
Of course he did. Anyway, here's a few hotel photos to finish out this episode.
Thanks for joining us for episode 2 of Israel Adventure 2019, and we hope you found it enjoyable and inspiring. There's a few more episodes coming soon, so hit the subscribe button, and please leave your comments below.
We'd love to hear from you, and please pass on our YouTube page link to all your friends and family.
Thanks for watching.